We have some time for discussions, questions, comments, please.
I didn't introduce myself. Is this on? The first time. My name is Gernand. I've spent my whole professional life serving capitalism, not to say mammon. So what I'm going to say is beyond suspicion. But at the very first, a personal organizational comment, if out of 3 authors, none can make it to the conference, then I think one should consider scrapping the contribution and giving the time to the other speakers who were here. But I think it's very much to be welcomed using other measures than GDP per capita as a measure of well-being, especially in connection with the globalization discussion. Conservative think tanks, like in this country, Agenda Austria, very happily use GDP per capita as a measure. There are 2 things which I think they disregard. One is that in the emerging countries, there are several, I'm thinking of even China, South Korea, Taiwan, and so forth, who are not really emerging markets anymore, but they are useful for the purpose of these think tanks. So those countries distort the results, in my opinion, not only concerning income, but also concerning health, I believe. And further, the measure GDP per capita totally distorts the results. Says nothing about the well-being in those countries. Of course, there are huge statistical difficulties in trying to calculate something like median income in many of these places, but GDP per capita is certainly not sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to answer?
GDP is your
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. And yeah, I mean, I fully agree that there are some issues that are problematic between different countries, particularly when you have China growing very quickly. So people are saying now at the moment, well, it's kind of a role model, we should emulate it and so on, but this regards that it starts from a very low level. So it depends, of course, if we look at growth, then it's distorted much more when you look at these countries than at the level, because at the level I would think that it at least correlates very highly with many other dimensions of well-being. So there are studies showing that GDP per capita, education, life expectancy and so on and so forth are correlated very highly. And so at least you gain some information out of that by having this correlation among the different things. So if you are interested in one and you only have one indicator available, then it captures many of the different aspects that you want to measure. And I think that's an advantage of GDP. But of course I agree, as I also said in my presentation, that there are also many shortcomings of that.
Just add, I mean, there's this strong non-linearity on the relationship between income and life satisfaction, and there's little doubt that at the very low level, of course, getting out of absolute poverty is something that everybody finds desirable and that improves your well-being, and that's also why in the definition of yoga we have a sort of absolute poverty being there. If your year is not counted as good year, if you are below the threshold. But then it quickly flattens, and that's what this famous Easterlin paradox is all about. And there are many studies actually about the people who win in lottery, and at the end they're actually less happy than they were before winning in the lottery. So that is really sort of puts it very clearly that there are at least very important additional dimensions. And I think that's now state of the art, particularly after the Lutz and the Tussi report has been mentioned, but there are many others. I mean, it's so clear on the table. The question is only which one, and that's why we have a field of mushrooming indicators now, and that's why I think we need criteria to see which of the indicators are meeting which criteria and which one we should use.
Thank you very much. Paul Fragus, London School of Economics. I have a remark and a question.
Short questions and short answers, please.
Yeah, indeed. So my short remark is that GDP is incredibly hard to measure. I mean, the appendices of how to measure it are several hundreds of papers, and most GDP figures have large aspects to it that are made up and that are incredibly costly. But my question is to Wolfgang, because I basically fully agree with him, and we in our group have come to exactly the same conclusion as to what the practical way forward is, and some notion of life expectancy times average expected life satisfaction is sort of the only way to get forward. But a difficulty in the production function is these capital levels. Right? It may take decades before we get anywhere close to something like natural capital measure. Right? Because the natural way to go is to measure it in terms of money, and then we're back to the problem we had, and we can't do that. So these capital levels, we can think of them, but we can't measure them. Have you got any practical ideas as to how to take that forward? Because that's a hard constraint. There's no way to do that at the moment.
Well, very quickly, I mean, this is a huge issue. Economists tended to try to measure it in terms of dollar terms of money, and we try to forget about money and directly look how do changes in the environment directly affect human survival and human health. And I mean, we have data on natural disasters, and there has been some estimates also in this context of the shared socioeconomic pathways that match a certain pathway of future socioeconomic development with disaster vulnerability due to already unavoidable climate change. And at YASA, where we have this big environment problem, we have over the last 2 decades really done a lot of modeling in the field. But I agree it is very, very hard. But it's probably easier if we look at directly the feedback, the survival of people rather than some strange monetary figures.
Say one sentence to the measure.
Yeah, well, I agree with you that GDP is difficult to calculate in general, but it's comparatively easy when you compare it to the Human Development Index that contains GDP. So it contains 2 other things. So, and in addition, it's difficult, of course, to have polls and so on in low developed countries where you don't get the representative sample, you don't know where the people live and so on, and it's quite expensive data. That's what I meant, but I completely agree with you.
Erich Striesen from the Wittgenstein Center. Klaus, I very much liked your idea of sort of reforming GDP rather than to just throw it out and to see whether we can use it, still use it in creative new ways. However, I have 2 quick questions. I just was wondering if in a way you're probably double accounting for inequality in this indicator, because in a way inequality is already inherent to healthy life expectancy, and then you're accounting for it again with the Gini coefficient. And then the second question is, who tells us that this way of weighting in inequality is actually the right way? Yeah? Maybe people are much more affected by inequality in countries that are very severely unequal, and less so, and there's less of a difference between countries that are already not so unequal anymore, yeah? So, of course, this is probably a good way of getting a time series for many countries, but the real impact of inequality on human well-being might be rather different and described by a different function.
So thanks a lot also for your question. So I think to answer the first part, yeah, I mean, there could be a double counting there. What we do is we include the healthy life expectancy because we think it captures health better than pure life expectancy, but we have an extension on that where it's just life expectancy, then there would be a double counting, and we would have available for many more countries also, or time periods basically. But yeah, and the second thing was, yeah, inequality is definitely more problematic in low-income countries where people would starve than in high-income countries. Whether we need to adjust for that weighting, of course, is a matter of the calculation in the end, because here the definition is clear. So if we want to have this income, then we aggregate it over the different years. That's the same as the car that goes, so if you drive 50 miles per hour for 10 hours, you drive 500 miles. And that's what you calculate. And if you multiply it up in that way, then the weighting, basically the implicit weighting, is suggested by this calculation. But I completely agree that we should think more clearly about adjusting that for exactly the problems that you mentioned.
Okay, two final questions, one here and one here.
Okay, my name is Bernhard Bingham. I'm working also at the Wittgenstein Center. I think what makes GDP so popular is not that it's itself such a useful measure, but it is embedded in a whole system of information, national accounts, which provides really detailed information about the economy. So if GDP changes, you can use this system to also get information, why is this change? So is it due to a change in investments, due to a change in consumption? You can analyze which sector is responsible for these changes and what type of products is it. So I think if you want to make your indicator really popular and be used in the future, it should also provide information what can be done to increase these indicators. An example is, for example, if it includes life expectancy or healthy life expectancy, it will need a type of health account which shows why in certain countries, for example, life expectancy is lower than in others. Is it due to a prevalence of certain diseases, of addictive behavior, or similar information?
Yeah, I mean, you're perfectly right. I mean, each of these indicators should really be a guidance for policies, and you should be able to show what policies would result in an increase or a decrease of this indicator. So that is really one of the criteria as well.
I also fully agree. Okay.
So I worked for 20 years for the OECD and used, of course, very heavily. And used very heavily GDP per capita as empirical evidence, and also participated in the efforts of OECD to join going beyond GDP. Now, I think what sometimes in these discussions is forgotten, and Wolfgang was, of course, mentioning it in his last remark, that all this, especially GDP, was developed for policy in order to give policymakers the information how they should design their policies and what they should target at. And so I think for the well-being indicators, it's very, very important also to remember or to internalize this role. And so I was very satisfied by seeing that production functions, for instance, well-being production functions are developed. And what is also important in this respect is to have the connection with policy measures more researched and also more made evident. Just a quick comment on Klaus' indicator or movement of the well-being indicator. I would agree with the previous discussion that you make a very simplified weighting assumption. I mean, you have a unit elasticity of substitution assumption that you can substitute, for instance, relative changes in GDP, inequality, and health on a one-by-one basis. And I think that you may have to give more concern whether this is really empirically justified.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that we can think about these things and definitely that deserves it, but I would think that exactly this weighting is not arbitrary, it comes out of the definition. Every other weighting is arbitrary. So if I drive with the car, as I said before, then I multiply speed with time that I drive. I don't multiply speed with twice the time I drive. So I would give then the time a different weight that is unjustified, but here from the definition of the number, it follows immediately. But I agree, otherwise we should think about these things, we should think about whether there are things weighted differently and whether some things deserve more weight and so on, but just from the mathematical thing that follows here would be this the most natural way, I think.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank the presenters and the presenters and the people who have asked questions. I think it was very interesting. No further question, we are out of time. I'm going to my watch at least. Yeah, we have now a break and you can ask questions personally. Okay, thank you very much.